Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel, my friends. Today it is Star Trek the Original Series Day. And what are we watching today? Season 1, episode, I can't even believe this, 19. Episode 19. Tomorrow is yesterday. Uh, just by the title, it sounds like time travel-y type of stuff. We'll see. We haven't really had any of that. We had a little taste of that at the end of an episode, but we haven't really seen anything more about the implications or the utilization of time travel. And I know that's a major, major Star Trek trope. Is this our first actual time travel episode? I'm not going to speculate, because the names really don't necessarily indicate what the original series shows are going to be about. So I want to experience this for whatever plan the writers have for us, or the writer has for us, my friends. All right, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, smash the subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, and you'll be alerted next time we go live with the original series or Lower Decks, The Expanse, any of our sci-fi offerings, my friends. You will be made aware and can join us. And of course, if you want any of that in its full-length, uncut format or early, link to the Patreons in the description. All that is then, though, and this is now. And now, absolutely, I say this about every single series because I'm blessed to be watching some really good ones right now. One of my favorite days of the week, my friends, as we watch Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 19. Tomorrow is yesterday. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction. And away we go. U.S. Air Force, eh? Right into a cold open.
Captain,
What is it, Webb?
a blip, sir. Just came on the screen.
How do you read it?
It's a blip.
Watch the scope, Webb. Air Defense will want to send somebody up to get a closer look. I think we have a real UFO in our hands.
Well, the fact that they're going with UFO and not like ICBM indicates the time that we're looking here. It certainly looks like Cold War. Stock footage, baby. Uh-oh. Look at that beauty. I like her better in space, but look at that beauty. All right, Jim's here to tell us about the Final Frontier and how cool it is. Looks like a time travel episode, my friends, and it looks like the entire Enterprise was taken back, which is interesting. I mean, yes, I remember in the movies like Voyage Home, they took an entire ship back in time. And I know in like First Contact, they took an entire ship back in time. So it's absolutely possible. I think it's interesting when you have an entire ship at your disposal. I know that there have been like time travel episodes in Next Generation where it's been like a few members of the crew have traveled, or maybe it was even an Enterprise, where they went back to like North America at some point. The Vulcans did, but having a whole ship at your disposal makes things a little bit easier, I guess. We'll see. Tomorrow is yesterday. I love this effing show so much, my friends.
Black star of high gravitational attraction began to drag us toward it.
Like a black hole?
But like snapping a rubber band, the breakaway sent us plunging through space, out of control, to stop here, wherever we are.
If Mr. Scott is still with us, auxiliaries should be on momentarily.
If Mr. Scott is still with us.
Mr. Scott is still with us.
All departments tie in with the record computer. Report casualties and operational readiness to the first officer. Kirk out.
I love it.
Send it Hura.
Listen to the immediate crosstalk. The immediate crosstalk comes in. Oh, I love that.
Orbit where, Mr. Spock?
Earth, Captain. We were on a general course in this direction when we were pulled in by the star.
How long before you figure out it's not your time period?
Give us some altitude, Mr. Sulu.
Yes, sir. Helm answering. She's sluggish, sir.
Captain,
She's in Atmo.
I'm getting something on another frequency, but it's not Starfleet.
Put it on audio.
It'll be music.
Is the 5:30 news summary. Cape Kennedy. The first manned moonshot is scheduled for Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All three astronauts who are to make this historic...
They're in 1969?
That was in the late 1960s.
Apparently, Captain. So are we. What? Whiplash propelled us into a time warp, Captain. Backward. Exact chronometer readings in a few moments.
I like how...
I'm getting ground-to-air transmission.
Oh, great acting.
J4, you should be close enough for visual contact.
Sweet Jesus! That's what I would have said.
We want it brought down, or at least disabled until the other planes arrive.
Acknowledged. Closing on target.
I hate to think that this is how the Earth's response would be.
Scotty, activate tractor beam.
Captain, this type of aircraft might be too fragile to take our tractor beam.
Tractor beam on, sir. We have the target.
This poor guy.
Is breaking up, Captain.
I was right.
Try and beam that pilot aboard. Take over, Mr. Spock.
Well, this is before there's apparently any like laws of time.
Welcome aboard the Enterprise.
Who is this?
You speak English.
That's right.
Captain John Christopher, United States Air Force. Serial number 4857932.
John Christopher.
Relax, Captain. You're among friends.
You really have no choice, John, but...
What's going on here? Where am I? What happened?
Don't tell him too much, Jim.
Let me apologize for bringing you aboard the ship so abruptly, but it couldn't be helped. I didn't know that your craft couldn't stand up to our tractor beam.
You did. Spock told you.
The aircraft has completely broken up, Captain. Shall we turn off the tractor beam?
Affirmative. We have the pilot aboard.
Just let the debris fall where it may, preferably in a populated area.
Good morning, Captain.
Morning, Captain.
A woman?
Truman.
You couldn't tell by the change in music?
Must have taken quite a lot to build a ship like this.
There are only 12 like it in the fleet.
Ooh.
It's very difficult to explain. We're from your future.
Should we really be telling John all this?
It was an accident.
You seem to have a lot of them.
That's an interesting assumption, John, that we have a lot of accidents.
I never have believed in little green men.
Well,
Neither have I.
Captain Christopher, this is my first officer, Lieutenant Commander Spock.
he's just green-blooded. Ba-dum-bum.
You look around, Captain. Don't touch anything, but I think you'll find it interesting.
Feel free to look around. Don't touch anything, but... I mean, is it just me, or I wouldn't be thrown too much by the ears?
And Mr. Scott wishes to speak to you about the engines.
Very well, Mr. Spock.
Is James Doohan in the episode, or are they just going to refer to him the entire time?
Captain Christopher.
Does he have historical significance? Because that's going to suck.
An unscrupulous man were to gain certain knowledge of man's future. Such a man could manipulate key industries, stocks, and even nations.
Biff.
You and I, and all that we know, might not even exist.
It's the butterfly effect. But I mean, the logic is 100% sound here.
Why don't you have the quartermaster issue him something more suitable?
Will they give him a uniform? Leonard Nimoy is fantastic in this role. You know, the blank expression could be perceived as being easy, but not to the degree in which he wields it. It's amazing.
Computed, dear.
Mr. Spock, I ordered this computer and its interlinking systems repaired.
I have investigated it, Captain. To correct the fault will require an overhaul of the entire computer system.
Well, we're going to have to do that at some point because I'm being hit on by the computer.
We put it into Signet 14 for general repair and maintenance. Signet 14 is a planet dominated by women. They seem to feel the ship's computer system lacked the personality. They gave it one. Female, of course.
Love it. Signet 14, is that what they said?
I'd love to stay around to see how your girlfriend works out, but
I'm afraid you'll have to.
Yeah, sucks to be you, John.
You know what the future looks like. If anybody else finds out, they could change the course of it.
John might have a family.
well, then my disappearance would change something too.
Yep.
I have run a computer check on all historical tapes. They show no record of any relevant contribution by John Christopher.
Well, that's a fun thing to hit.
We can't take the risk.
I don't want to know about risks. I have a wife, 2 children.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
What do you mean you're sorry? Guys, you have time to suss something out here.
Kirk here. What is it, Scotty?
There's Jim.
Well, sir, as I say,
The engines are being repaired, but we've no place to go in this time.
Who have fixed engines but nowhere to go.
Maybe I can't go home, but neither can you. You're as much a prisoner in time as I am.
Yep. Now, come on. This episode has to be, how do we get John back without there being a problem? Is there a mind meld situation that we can use here for, like, I don't know, the ethical implications of memory removal, but...
And we have aboard a passenger whom we do not want, and we cannot return.
Recommendation for his disposition, dear.
Oh my God. This shit's hilarious.
My recording computer has a serious malfunction. Recommended either be corrected or scrapped. Compute.
Computed.
Major Barrett. Computed.
Regarding Captain Christopher. Important I see you both immediately.
I wonder if the tapes have changed.
Captain Christopher.
Captain Christopher is not going to know how to answer that.
Captain Christopher is not in his assigned quarters. He may be trying to escape the ship. I want a man outside the transporter room immediately. I'm heading there myself.
How's he going to know how to use any of this stuff? Come on now. Come on now. John, I'm doing the same thing, buddy. 100% doing the same thing. Yeah, I mean...
Now, I'm gonna step into that thing and you're gonna transport me back to Earth.
Oh. Karate chop and a knockout blow. Courtesy of your captain, everybody.
There's coming out of it in a minute or two.
He tried to escape.
Wouldn't you?
How he feels.
Yeah.
There are 430 of us. Now that means 430 chances of altering the future.
It's cool. Is this like where like the time travel rules come from?
You said you had some additional information, Mr. Spock?
I made an error in my computations. Oh? This could be an historic occasion. I find that we must return Captain Christopher to Earth after all.
Why? You said I made no relative contribution.
I neglected in my initial run-through to correlate the possible contributions by offspring. That your son, Colonel Sean Jeffrey Christopher, headed, or will head, the first successful Earth-Saturn probe, which is a rather significant...
Wait a minute, I don't have a son.
Not yet, John.
We'll have to find some way of...
A boy.
Yeah, you get a boy, buddy.
When I made visual contact, I turned on my wing cameras. And I got close enough to take some pretty clear pictures of you. Air Defense Command will be processing that film fast.
Can you beam up the film?
These things were being dismissed as weather balloons, sundogs, explainable things, at least publicly.
Captain.
Yeah, pictures.
Our tractor beam caught and crushed an Air Force plane. It'll be impossible to explain us as anything other than a genuine UFO.
John, you have to fabricate a story, I guess.
We're going to have to go back and get those reports and photos. If the captain feels duty-bound to report what he saw, there won't be any evidence to back him up.
That makes me out to be either a liar or a fool.
Perhaps.
We can come up with another idea here, everybody.
I could sketch a layout of the place for you. Show you where the record section and the photo lab are.
I like John. He's realistic. At this point, John doesn't have any reason to, like, try to get them caught or... And it's not necessarily a measure of loyalty and, like, he's, you know, this is a treasonous application of his knowledge. Oh, Sulu coming down. I love Kirk and Sulu together. This is a cork board. This is amazing. Nice little touch, you know, just walking in and immediately going to plan and not being like, oh my God, we're in the past. Not having a moment like that. You know, like this is just, these are explorers, you know, they're not warriors or military, you know, they are sort of in the military, but you know, they're explorers. And this has to be one of the greatest discoveries ever, the past. And there we go. What do we got here? Oh, flashlight. Okay. You rarely see them have torches, you know? It's crazy. Really good use of music in this episode, too. I mean, it's subtle, obviously, with just a score, but it's good for tension. It's good for discovery.
I've seen them demonstrated in museums.
Me too. If this one's like those, it'll make the devil's own noise if you start it.
The devil's own noise. Look at that beauty. In any time period, everybody. She's a beauty.
How long have they been down there now? 15 minutes, 28 seconds. Well, shouldn't they be coming up? It is a fact, Doctor, that prowling by stealth is more time-consuming than a direct approach.
Prowling by stealth. He's also keeping a second-by-second recounting of the away team timestamp. Oh, when you absolutely positively have to have the best member of Starfleet, except no substitute. Maybe we could have had somebody monitoring sensors to say that somebody was approaching.
It's been too long. Jim should have at least signaled by now.
I mean, Bones is right. He put on long sleeves for this.
What was that?
What was what?
What was what?
Open it up. He's distracted, guys. Now might be a good time to strike.
We'll know in a moment, Doctor.
This is going to be an interesting arrival. Now, they don't have phasers or communicator or the bag. Phaser stun. Phaser stun. You don't need another person. You have to phaser stun. Maybe somebody say something so this isn't as crazy as it looks.
Kirk's Enterprise.
He's got a gun, everyone.
Are you all right, Captain?
Yes, I'm all right, but as you can see, we have another problem.
Hey, Jim. No shit. This is a great episode.
Due to an unfortunate accident, we have taken aboard another unwanted passenger.
An unfortunate accident. Shit's snowballing, everybody. We can't stop it.
Our guest seems quite satisfied to remain where he is.
Kirk out.
He is literally frozen? Is that a thing?
When we first sighted Christopher's jet.
5:30 in that time zone, maybe a little after.
I would put it at the end of these tapes. We've got them all.
It's such a cool little stamp. You know, what time did we get here so we know which tapes to take? I mean, it makes too much sense. This is logical, no pun intended writing, and I couldn't appreciate it more. My God, James Dean. I really love Kirk and Sulu together. I think they make a fantastic team. My bias is I like Sulu with everybody because I think his character is fantastic. Really liked him in Shore Leave. Oh my God. Plus, you know what I should do? Sulu has to be one of the most experienced away team members so far in the original series. He's been on planet just about any time that we can be on planet. Look at that stunt. Bill Shatner taking him cross-body Bill Shatner. Kirk's like, you know what, guys? I'm sorry, but this is going to have to be a savage beating for the timeline to remain intact. Look at these fucking moves, man. This is the best Jim Kirk. Unreal. Sulu beam out. Please tell me Sulu beamed out.
All right, where's the other one?
One of them.
Your partner. I saw you looking that way, and I saw somebody move in there.
No.
Oh, you got good eyes.
Besides, could anyone get out of here without you seeing them?
No, nobody should have been able to.
Let's logically have a conversation after you beat the piss out of 3 of us.
Spock here.
We've completed re-energizing the warp engine, sir. We can refire them any time.
Do so now, engineer. We'll need all power to test our theory.
Aye, sir. Engine room out.
I think Scotty's the one that is least affected by Spock's emotionlessness.
Poor photography.
Poor photography.
What about Jim? He's down there alone, probably under arrest. He doesn't have a communicator, and we can't locate him or beam him back aboard without one.
I am aware of that, Doctor.
But thanks for the recap.
And how did you get inside a top security installation, James T. Kirk?
I told you wouldn't believe me.
Well, James T. Kirk, I need to shoot you now.
Colonel, would you mind being careful with that?
Oh, that worries you a little bit, huh? What is that, a radio? Transmitter or something?
Turn around the other way. Push that button.
I'll have it disassembled and examined. We are not dummies, mister. We know how to find out things we want to know.
Please tell me this guy stuns himself. Don't kill yourself, kid.
What is that? Is that a uniform of some kind?
Absolutely.
Something I slipped on.
Kirk, maybe you don't realize how serious this is. Sabotage of a government installation.
Did I sabotage something?
No, we stopped you in time. But what would you have done if we hadn't found you?
I would have defaced some of those photos.
I am going to lock you up for 200 years.
Well, I'll see you in 201.
That ought to be just about right.
He's probably being held in security section. Even if they've notified the authorities, it'll take a little time for someone to get there.
Could you beam everybody up?
But you're not going to get them unless you take me with you.
Yep. No one's going to believe it.
I can't do that, Captain.
If something went wrong... Something's already gone wrong.
This is snowballing.
Of course, you could beam down anywhere inside that base, but it would take time to find him.
That's more exposure, more problems, more variables. You know that, Spock. You got to use your assets. Captain Christopher's an asset.
The captain will provide the coordinates for the transporter chief.
Shall I issue phasers?
One for you, one for me. Set them on heavy stun force.
Yes, sir.
You don't trust me, Spock.
He trusts that you'll do what you think is right. And it's, I mean, again, to be put in John's position, I mean, you don't really truly know. I mean, they seem legitimate, I guess. Maybe if they haven't hurt you or anything, but, you know, they also threaten to keep you from. And this guy, why aren't we knocking this guy out? I mean, isn't that a humanitarian thing to do, is just stun him? Now you've got two guys that have been up here.
Are you hungry? Uh-huh.
I could eat.
Maybe some chicken soup.
You have a chicken soup setting? This is a great scene. It's like two guys that are along for the ride.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, my theory about actors and actresses with blue eyes in early color television. It's like every one of the like non-principals, all the extras have these piercing blue eyes.
Just a minute, sir. Hold it.
Could have probably used Spock's pinch there. But yeah, blunt force trauma works too. Surprise. That's for asking the appropriate questions and not harming me.
He knew the exact beam down coordinates for this section of the base. It was necessary to bring him along.
I see. Well, no harm done. Mr. Sulu, did you have a chance to check out those tapes?
No harm to us done.
They know you've been here.
All they have is a mystery and no answers. Mr. Sulu, signal.
He's got a gun or a phaser behind him.
Not me.
Listen, you can blame John all you want. This is exactly what I would do. Telling me I can't get back to my family? You're going to steal me? Yeah, we're going to have this problem right now.
Spock, come out of there.
You can't explain your presence on the base.
I told you it's my duty to report everything I've seen. That's explanation enough. Spock!
You'll go home, Christopher. But you'll do it our way.
Over my dead body.
Spock is the...
Captain's log, stardate 3140.
All right, what are we going to do here?
Scott and I both agree that the only possible solution is a slingshot effect, like the one that put us here. My computations indicate that if we fly toward the sun, seek out its magnetic attraction,
Oh my God, this is what they did in Voyage Home, isn't it?
and we'll transport you back at a point before any of this happened.
You won't have anything to remember because it never will have happened.
What if you can't pull free of the sun?
Oh, we'll do that all right, Captain. We'll not be getting so close that my engines couldn't pull us out.
What I am worried about, sir, that we may not have much control when we're thrown forward again.
Helm control?
Braking control, sir. If I can't stop us soon enough,
We'll shoot past.
and if I stop the engine suddenly, the strain may tear us apart.
Woo!
Well, gentlemen, we all have to take a chance. Especially if one is all you have.
There has to be another workaround for that because I sort of don't like the slingshot effect, pulling them back in time. We've experienced that before, though, where they were like 3 days earlier after that first time thing. But the loss of memories, I don't know if because wouldn't everybody in the crew of the Enterprise like lose what they have figured out? You know what I mean?
I thought I'd make it into space.
You made it, buddy. You won't remember it, but...
Take a good look around, Captain. You made it here ahead of all of them.
And your son, Sean's gonna make it to Saturn.
Approaching breakaway point on the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Crackerjack timing between Spock, Kirk, Sulu, and Montgomery Scott. Crackerjack timing. Oh, look at that solar flare.
Maximum now, sir. She's fighting it.
She should. You fight back. My God, she's moving. My thing is, Oh, okay, so the captain will retain his knowledge, but just not share it? Is that how that works?
Bridge to transporter room. Captain Christopher.
This is Christopher.
We're coming up on Earth fast. Captain, are you ready?
Everything okay? Captain. Thanks for the look ahead.
Our pleasure, Captain. Good job.
Keep it to yourself. Or you two can talk about it. That's about it. Make sure no one else is around.
You should be close enough for visual contact.
It's interesting. So what happened to the one that he transported?
Now.
Energize.
So they do forget. I'm not real down with that.
30.
Never mind, Mr. Spock.
It either works or it doesn't. Ooh, Spock. I mean, tits over transom there. Come on, beauty.
Engines are on full reverse. They're buckling.
Buckling. Holy shit. Well, I've never heard.
Open the channel over.
Frequency open, sir.
Starfleet Control. This is the Enterprise. Captain Kirk speaking.
Record ship arrival, dear.
The Enterprise is home. Kirk out.
Alrighty, my friends. We just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 19. Tomorrow is yesterday. And the only thing we have left to do now is talk about it. Alright, my friends, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 19. Tomorrow is yesterday. Okay, let's start with this. I loved just about everything about this episode. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The one thing I didn't like, though, was this memory stuff they kind of utilized at the end to send the guard and send Captain Christopher back. I would have much rather them utilized, and again, this is not me second guessing the writing. I thought DC Fontana did a fantastic job with this episode, especially with like our advent into time travel. A lot of great lore established, a lot of great kind of like, you can see where the rules come from. You know, if you get lost in time, go someplace that time doesn't, won't notice you, live out your life, that type of stuff, stay out of the no paradoxes camp and things like that. What I didn't like, though, was I thought the story would have been stronger if the guard, they should have just stunned the guard and kept him, sedated or something like that, because that would have been less of exposure, appearing in that room and then immediately going down might have, in the transporter room and then immediately being stunned might have been something like, what happened? I had too much to drink last night. It would have been, the guard could have worked past that. The real problem was Christopher, not knowing exactly what was going on. And I even think that some of the incursions into the base and the fighting and physical nature that went on down there could also be something that would have been just kind of shoulder shrugged, like, yeah, something happened. We don't know how to define it. Let's just kind of, stay on a heightened sense of alert, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there was anything that was given away on on Earth that would have affected the future, if that makes sense. I just think that it would have been a more fitting episode if Captain Christopher had retained the knowledge that he had, determined not to say anything, even though it would have been impossible to explain, putting him back before the event, I think that's still a really cool move. Because they've established that that's what happened in the earlier episode when they got flung away and they were 3 days removed from even arriving on planet. Anywho, that's been pre-established, so that's something that can definitely happen as far as like moving backwards in time. And so they were able to kind of utilize that effort or that prior knowledge to kind of get it working. Great, great. And I don't mind that. What I mind is that if you do that, it's not like the memories are being sucked out of the heads of the entire Enterprise crew. They've established that they remember and retain knowledge from these like missing days or missing hours. So that's also established as part of this. So you can't really have, hey, we used this before and it had these effects, and now you're like, hey, let's use this before, but it's going to have a completely different effect on Captain Christopher. I didn't understand the beaming, like you're beaming him in and replacing him with the pilot that was in. At that point, that's two different people. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't beamed out. You know what I mean? So there would have been a switcheroo that had gone on there. What happened to like the original or the older or the earlier version of John Christopher? So that rises with a paradox in me, and like beaming him in doesn't erase the memories. That was a sticking point for me in an otherwise really well constructed episode. I think the couple things that we need to talk about is that, we got a great lore dump there with just a broadening of the universe type of thing. Something that's going on in Lower Decks, right? I'm at the beginning of season 3 of Lower Decks, and they're kind of doing a check-in with the rest of the galaxy, or at least like that sector of space. Like, hey, what's everybody doing over here? And in a weird way, this was like a check-in for the lore of Star Trek, where it was like, gave us a bunch of little things, kind of really focused on the idea that the computer for the Enterprise has a female voice and was created or developed by, was it Signet 14? And they said that, there were, I guess, feminine engineers there that cast the same type of persona onto the computer to make it more lively or not lively, I guess, more organic, more real, more comfortable to talk to, I guess. But that's the first time that they've really even mentioned the idea. And of course they, amplified it by having, the deer at the end and the understood. Which was ridiculous, but it was funny. It was very funny. But I mean, I again, that's established lore that continues all the way through TNG, with the voice. Really great stuff. But again, the time travel lore is probably the most profound because I remember them, and I've only ever seen Star Trek 4, right? The Voyage Home, that's the whale one, right? I've only ever seen that once, maybe partially twice. I can't remember. Something tells me that I watched like the end of it with one of my friends one time. And I do remember a fairly decent amount of that they had to go back in time, to bring whales forward so their song could like interact with some type of probe, I believe it was. But again, I remember them distinctly using the sun. I don't remember it being called the slingshot maneuver, but I remember them using the sun to gain the speed necessary to kind of be flung back in time. And so I think it's really interesting that that's a constant now. DC Fontana created a constant for pretty reliable time travel, or at least that in this, doing this, it opens up the possibility for time travel. This is like one of the ways that you could conceivably like activate time travel. Awesome stuff. I mean, that's a huge lore dump there. We also found out that Warp 8, even before we've had Warp 8, when they were chasing the Gorn, we found out in the arena, we found out that Warp 8 was kind of like the top end speed of the Enterprise. I mean, people were freaking out at Warp 7. And then when they went to Kirk ordered Warp 8, everybody kind of thought, whoa, what the hell's going on here? You know, how are we going to, how are we going to work this? We're going to blow up. But they said Warp 8 and then off the charts, completely off the scale. So they must have gone, you know, well north of Warp 8. Again, I don't think that that's something that could be done a lot with the Enterprise, because through that process of breaking, I mean, that was the most animated I think we've seen Montgomery Scott, as he was kind of relating that, you know, they were going to get ready to come apart. I mean, they were very close to having like a catastrophic system failure explosion along the Enterprise, because, you know, Scotty is not one to hyperbole. He's not one. In fact, you know, Scotty's the opposite. Scotty will make it sound like something's awful, but know that he can get it done in half the time, thus making him a miracle worker. So whenever Scotty gets very animated, I get concerned, because he normally is when it comes to the ship and the systems, he's very matter of fact. Take this, it'll do this, it'll take as much time. We can't try that. This won't work. You know, in many ways, he's like Spock when it comes to the engines. It's a logical approach. He'll tell you what can and can't happen. And so when he gets animated and when he says, you know, hey, we're coming apart, I believe that shit. I don't think that that's hyperbole. I don't think that that's, you know, just, you know, him getting excited. You know, Scotty doesn't do that. Scotty doesn't really, you know, get a lot of that, at least what I've seen so far. He can get animated, but not when it comes to the ship. The ship, he's pretty even keel and he knows her better than anybody. When he says she's coming apart, she's coming apart. And so that also determined, you know, DC Fontana, she did a fantastic thing here by saying, yeah, you can time travel. You can't do it a whole lot, though, you know, because it'll blow your ship to shit if you keep trying to do that type of stuff, which is awesome. You know, yes, it's good, but too much of a good thing get you killed, even with time travel. We got the named slingshot effect, which I'm sure that is something that'll come up again. The other thing that that they talked about that was notable in all of this, that really kind of pinpointed. I talk about Lower Decks, and Lower Decks right now, they're trying to kind of give the Cerritos, the ship of Lower Decks, give the Cerritos a positioning in its sector and kind of a standing in its sector. You know, like, what do people think about it? What do other races think about it? What do other cultures think about it? Which is a really cool thing to check into, because whenever we get information from outside of the hull of the ship, you know, where the efforts of the, I always feel whenever we get that type of news or that type of information, that the world seems so much more alive. The galaxy seems breathed. It seems lived in. It seems like there's stories going on outside of the walls of the Enterprise that are as intriguing as those going on within the walls of the Enterprise. And it just adds that living and breathing quality to the entire galaxy, which is so necessary in any genre, but really necessary in a science fiction genre, because it gives us an understanding about the rest of the area. Any knowledge and anything that you can glean in a science fiction type of setting is necessary and very wanted, because it gives you a better understanding of what's going on, of how the worlds are, how the universe is, you know, and you can apply those to our characters and our craft. You know, we can take that away. And when he said that there are 12 ships like the Enterprise, so that's because we're what Constitution class? We're Constitution class with the Enterprise, so there are 12 others. I think that is the first time that they've mentioned that. So I love that. There are 12 other ships that are like the Enterprise, same class as the Enterprise, which I'm pretty sure is Constitution. You know, and so all of those ships in different sectors and different areas lend themselves to people that we can meet in the future, events that we can hear about in the future. So if we hear, you know, the USS so and so, another Constitution class, was destroyed, we immediately have stakes. You mean a ship as capable as the Enterprise, at least, you know, spec wise, was destroyed? Okay, that means the Enterprise can be destroyed. You know, if we hear about any type of, first contact situation or treaty or something like that, it just broadens the scope and the richness and the fullness of the universe. And knowing that there are 12 of those ships out there having similar, maybe not as grand in scale as the shenanigans the Enterprise gets into, but still, there are tales being told out there. And I love that. I love that there are stories and books written that no one's seen from these, and that's the TTRPG in me. I immediately think, oh, it'd be so much great to have a campaign where you're one of the other Constitution classes. We should think about that. That would be a fun little thing to do, eh? All right, my friends. I think that's just about all for Star Trek, the original series, season 1, episode 19. Tomorrow is yesterday. An incredibly fun episode that gave us a lot of really rich building blocks for the time travel trope that we have right now. And I'm very interested to see exactly what little tidbits we can come up with about this particular episode. But before we do that, if you could do me a favor and hit that like button, smash the subscribe, and ringy ding ding that bell for notifications. You too will be alerted the next time we go live here on YouTube with any Star Trek, the original series, or Lower Decks, science fiction of any kind. You'll be alerted and can join us, my friends. And of course, if you want any of those adventures early or in their full-length format, the link to the Patreon is in the description. But you know what? I haven't had enough of Tomorrow is Yesterday yet. I'd like to learn some things. They may or may not have spoiled the episode for me if I had heard it before the reaction. And really, the only person that knows all of those things is Q. So I think it's time we head over for a little Q&A. Q? Greetings, mon capitains, and welcome to another installment of Q&A. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to one of the original series episodes, I go back and find some interesting tidbits about the backstory of said episodes, things that would have ruined it for me or spoiled certain elements if I had learned it or watched it before having reacted to the video. And so for this one, we will be going over the original series episode, Tomorrow is Yesterday. Friends, here's what we're going to go over. 5 distinct elements that I put into Q&A include, number 1, the writer and director. Who are they? Number 2, guest stars. Do we have any? 3, the core cast. Of our core cast, and that's usually the big 6, when we have Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Sulu, Uhura, and Scotty. Who appears? Do all of them appear? Awesome. And then number 4 is production. What are the interesting production elements or the behind the scenes little bits of trivia about this specific episode? And we've got some good ones for this episode. And last but not least, I usually reserve the 5th section for syndication cuts, but because we haven't had any for the past couple episodes, or at least none of note, I've kind of folded over syndication cuts until we have some. I will be putting in memorable quotes for this episode. So my friends, let's go over everything behind the scenes for Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 19, Tomorrow is Yesterday. Awesome. So first off, all right, friends, our first section, writers and directors. Who was our writer and who was our director? Easy enough. The writer for this episode of Tomorrow is Yesterday was D.C. Fontana. D.C. Fontana was usually on set, at least for the ones that I've researched and watched so far of the original series. And a lot of what her job entailed was making sure that there was a uniform kind of canon throughout the scripts that were coming in from different writers. Making sure that there was just certain continuity elements of both narrative and just actual visual things were made sure to be included or incorporated or modified if need be from whatever the script was that was being presented by the writers. In this instance, though, D.C. Fontana was given a 1-page synopsis by Gene Roddenberry to flesh out into an episode. Much more on that 1-page synopsis in a bit. Now, the director of this episode is a brand new director for Star Trek, the original series, Michael O'Hurley. Now, Michael O'Hurley, I thought, did a very good job with this episode, especially because there were some elements in here that we hadn't seen before, really, in any prior episode of the original series. Now, our next section, guest stars. Who guest starred in Tomorrow is Yesterday? We had a couple good ones. Roger Perry was Captain John Christopher. And a little note that I was going to put in production, but didn't put into production. apparently Perry had an absolutely fantastic time on set. Loved every bit of it. A sci-fi fan, if not a buff. Perry actually went to DeForest Kelley, and because Perry was given a command uniform similar to Kirk's, with the gold, went over to DeForest Kelley and said, "Man, I really, really like this uniform shirt. Can I take it?" And DeForest Kelley said, "Oh, they frown on that. But if you put it in your bag, I'm sure it'll be fine." So Perry, being a stand-up person, was like, "You know what? I don't want to get anybody in trouble." So he just left it. And then, of course, when Star Trek blew up and became this cultural thing, he said for the remainder of his life, one of his biggest regrets was not stealing the shirt. And you know what? I hate that he's gone. I wish we could get him a shirt because, geez, oh Pete's, that I thought he did a great job as John Christopher, and it was really a believable performance. And I really wish he would have been able to walk out of there with that gold uniform. Now, our next person, Hal Lynch, played the air police sergeant, the man that was really good at just freezing in utter shock. He played that strong shock performance. And then I think the underrated performance in all of this was Ed Peck, who played Captain Fellini. He was the person that was interrogating Kirk. And I thought he did a really good job, really solid job, especially since he was asked to take a lot of the, there was a physicality during, the capture and I guess arrest of Kirk. There was a 3v1 fight there that had a lot of stunts in it. And I noticed that especially the two guards that were there had to have been stuntmen and played the whole time. But Fellini did too, or I shouldn't say Fellini, but Ed Peck, who was playing Fellini, was in there as well, taking punches and taking hits. Good stuff, especially for a role like that. That's a big ask, and he delivered. Now our third section is our core cast. Was everybody present? Hell yeah, they were. All present, all hands present and accounted for, including Majel Barrett as the malfunctioning computer, which I got a kick out of. I don't know. And now, my friends, one of our favorite sections, production. What happened behind the scenes of note? And I said this a million times, and I'll say it a million more. The story behind the cameras at Star Trek, to me, is every bit as compelling as the wonderful adventures we see in front of the camera. Always incredible stuff going on. To this day, I'm shocked that they haven't made a movie about the making of Star Trek. It would be incredibly compelling. It would be an award winner if done correctly. The fact that you could have Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in there as well. I mean, there's just so many things that could be happening in a movie like that. Hollywood, get on that. That's an apple that's easy for the plucking right there. So for production, let's see, what notes do we have? This is the first time the Enterprise visits Earth. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. This is the first time that we've seen Earth both in the proximity of the Enterprise and the Enterprise naming the Earth as being where they were currently visiting. We've had a lot of Earth lookalikes and things like that. This is the first time Earth was actually in play. Now, Joseph Mullendore, I think I have that right, Joseph Mullendore's score for Conscience of the King actually makes a bit of a reappearance here. Whenever Spock is kind of displayed to Captain Christopher with the ears, there is a segment of one of the pieces from Conscience of the King used in there that was orchestrated by Joseph Mullendore. And I thought it was interesting that they're using some of those now. And from what you all have told me, a lot of those kind of early scores that they paid for, they go back and revisit and use again because, again, budgetary constraints, I assume, in the next couple seasons get to the point where you have to start using things again. But if you're going to use something again, that score in Conscience of the King was very good, and I'm glad to see it make a bit of a return here. Now, our third little tidbit for production is DC Fontana, the writer of Tomorrow is Yesterday, and again, DC Fontana wrote this entire episode. The treatment for it is something that we'll have to talk about. The one-page synopsis treatment, we'll talk about that very soon. But DC Fontana, who fleshed out the entire original story and gave us what we saw on the screen, correctly predicted both the year and the day of the week of the Apollo 11 mission. I think that is fantastic. And again, I'm not even sure if they mentioned the month in there. So, it's not that she got the month wrong. It's just that they didn't mention what month it was, just the year and the day of the week in which it had occurred. And she nailed both of those in a precog delivery because this was written in 66, you know? And so we were several years out of Apollo 11. Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. Awesome stuff. So happy. The sci-fi show nails the space travel element that it was predicting. Great stuff. Unknown to DC Fontana, Robert Justman, who was also one of the creatives in our early Star Trek Season 1, Robert Justman provided a one-page synopsis of the story to Gene Roddenberry earlier in 66, like winter-spring of 66. He presented this one-page synopsis. This synopsis, which has been uncovered or rediscovered, is literally exactly the format for which this episode takes place. Enterprise goes back in time, meets a modern-day Air Force pilot. Pilot comes in. How do we get him back onto the destroy all the rest? All of that stuff was brought into that one-page synopsis or treatment that was provided to Gene Roddenberry. Again, unknown to DC Fontana, at least according to what I've read. Roddenberry, in presenting this to DC Fontana as something that needed to be fleshed out into a full script, never mentioned Robert Justman, never said Robert Justman was the person that came up with the idea of this script or the idea of this episode, to the point where I'm not sure if Roddenberry took credit for it. I'm not ready to say that. I've read varying things that Roddenberry did take credit for it and that he didn't take credit for it. But the one thing that is universally accepted is Justman did not get any type of credit for Tomorrow Is Yesterday, nor were there any kind of residuals. No profits at all made, no royalties, nothing generated for Robert Justman, who came up with this episode, at least the idea for the episode. Now, our last point. Lastly, this was supposed to be the second part of a two-part episode, the very first two-part episode for the original series. And we actually had a hint of this at the end of The Naked Time. At the end of The Naked Time, whenever they're, escaping and getting kind of, whipped around, and they had to do that acceleration, and they go back in time 3 days. One of the lines in there was, it was kind of modified a bit, but when asked which direction to go, Kirk says, back the way we came, back towards Earth. And so they start to go back, and that whip effect happens, like that slingshot effect happens, and they end up going backwards 3 days. Now, what was initially supposed to happen is they were supposed to go back all the way to 1966, or, the late 60s when Tomorrow Is Yesterday was proposed, and that would be the bleed in, the end line, the leave line for Naked Time would have bled directly into our first two-part kind of serialized episode, which unfortunately had to be scrapped because there was production snafus on the Naked Time side, and they were having problems getting everybody kind of synced up to have this ready for a two-part delivery. And so they ended up having to kind of retroactively massage Naked Time a little bit to get it to just be kind of a lean off. And in fact, I think they ended up having to film an addition. They alluded to the fact they had to film an additional scene for Naked Time that basically said, hey, we're just going to live out these 3 days and everything will be fine. So they kind of equated it to 3 days as opposed to this long jump back to the 60s of Earth. So very, very interesting stuff. And now, last but not least, my friends, we have memorable quotes, as we do not have any notable or named syndication cuts in this episode. And our quote comes again from Captain Kirk. And this is in Kirk, after being presented with the slingshot effect as the only viable option of returning to their time, Kirk responds using the following. Well, gentlemen, we all have to take a chance, especially if one is all we have. That's Jim Kirk. So, thus ends another episode of Q&A. Until we meet again, my friends, behave.